The anniversary celebrations were beginning in Irina and Alexei's home. The anniversary was starting off warm and lively. Glasses clinked, guests chatted and laughed, reminiscing about funny moments from years past. The house smelled of baked goods, fried onions, and candles. Irina caught herself thinking that everything looked almost perfect. Almost. Close friends, co-workers, and neighbors, those who had been close to Irina and Alexei for 15 years of marriage, were laughing and chatting around the table. The large salad bowl in the middle of the table made it almost impossible to see Tamara Pavlovna, Irina's mother-in-law, sipping wine with an air of importance and nodding approvingly. She never missed a chance to comment on the proceedings. And even now, when Alexei rose with his glasses, she couldn't resist remarking, "Well, finally. I'd thought my son had completely forgotten how to treat women. Be careful, Irina, don't cry." Alexei, his shirt unbuttoned at the neck, his jacket off, relaxed as if at home, stood up, holding 2 glasses of dark wine in thin flutes. He'd pulled a bottle from the sideboard just before dinner, announcing that it was the very wine their parents had once given them, with instructions to open on their 15th wedding anniversary. A wine forgotten, but preserved only for the 2 of them, only for Irina and Alexei. His voice trembled slightly, but those around him mistook it for the excitement of the solemn moment. "Irina," he said softly, without turning to face her, "for us, for 15 years, for everything that has been, and for the dreams that will begin to come true today." He handed her one of the glasses with a strained smile. Irina slowly took the glass, looking at it intently. At that moment, a dull thud was heard. The guests' children playing in the corner knocked over an ikebana vase. It didn't break, but it rolled across the floor with a loud clatter, causing everyone to turn around. Someone chuckled, someone bent down to pick it up, but Alexei, still standing with glasses in his hands, gently raised his voice, drawing the guests' attention back. "Mishka decided to add some drama," he said with a slight smile, looking at his cousin's son. "Even on perfect evenings there should be a little chaos, and it would be better if it were the kids than another toast to the health of the tax office. Moreover, we are having a celebration after all, and I have words that I want to say only to my wife, Irina." The guests returned to their seats and fell silent. Their gazes again turned to the couple at the end of the table. "To us, Lyosha," she said not loudly, but clearly, and watched with interest as Alexei took a sip from his glass. At that moment, an image flashed before her eyes, short, sharp, like a jab. When she went out to touch up her makeup in the bathroom, in the empty hallway, little Yasha whispered conspiratorially in her ear, "Your name is Ira, and Uncle Lyosha was pouring something into the glass while you were gone. I saw, honestly, something white, like salt. Only it's a secret." Her hand trembled then, but she pulled herself together, stroked the boy's head, thanked him, and returned. Everything fell into place. And before we continue, let me introduce myself. My name is Yura Nebo, and I wrote this touching story just for you. Write in the comments the country and city from which you are listening to me, and the story is already waiting. It was then that she made a bold decision, and when everyone was distracted by the playful children in the living room, she leaned over to her husband and poured some of the contents of her glass into his. Alexei drank the wine almost to the bottom, exhaled as if releasing the tension, and looked at Irina. She stood next to him with the glass of wine, without even taking a sip, and looked at him intently. "Ira, what's wrong?" Alexei was surprised, but after a few minutes his face began to lose color. His movements became awkward, like those of a man trying to remember, where is he and who is in front of him. "Something is strange," Alexei squeezed out with an effort, looking around at the guests. "Do you hear that ringing, or is it just in my ears?" Confused glances. Someone offered water. Everyone started talking at once. Alexei suddenly jumped up, grabbing the edge of the table, and shouted with a trembling voice, She knows everything. Mom, tell her that it was her idea." Tamara Pavlovna, who was sitting at the edge, turned sharply to him, turned pale and laughed unnaturally loudly. "What are you talking about, Lyosha? People are looking. Come to your senses." She raised a napkin to her face, but it was clear from her look. Only her mouth was laughing. Her eyes darted around in panic. Half an hour later, Alexei's weight was taken away by ambulance. All this time he was delirious, so they had to take him away and put him to bed. Incoherent speech, strange behavior, and the heavy impact of what had happened ruined the evening. Tamara Pavlovna, without uttering a word, drove to the hospital, accompanying her son. The guests soon began to disperse, trying not to make eye contact, as if hoping to forget this ugly scene. When the door finally closed, Irina was left alone. The house, recently filled with voices, the clink of dishes, and candlelight, suddenly became empty and dark. She stood in the center of the living room, looking at the half-set table, and a dull feeling of almost physical emptiness overwhelmed her. She and Alexei had never had children, and in that moment, she realized how acutely she felt that right now. And after what had happened, she had no one left. In the morning, Irina couldn't collect her thoughts for a long time. She sat at the kitchen table in her robe, sipping water and staring into space. Fragments of the previous evening floated before her eyes. Alexei's eyes, a strange, trembling voice, a sharp cry, and words spoken in a panicked frenzy. On the table lay the letters she'd previously put off. One of the envelopes was from the bank. Inside was a second notice of late payment on Nadam's mortgage, which Irina knew nothing about. Absolutely nothing. A week ago, she'd already asked Alexei what these strange letters with her name and bank seals were. He'd brushed it off, saying it was a technical error. Something had messed up the database, not to worry. But now, looking at the document, Irina felt her stomach tighten. These papers raised too many questions. But today, after everything that had happened, it was clear the excuses were over. Now he would have to tell the truth. She called the clinic's reception area, introduced herself, and asked if she could visit her husband. The answer was politely curt. He was conscious, but weak. Short visits were possible in the morning. Irina hung up the phone in a daze. Questions flashed through her head, finding no answers. She dressed slowly and left the house. An hour later, standing in the ward where everything smelled of bleach and something hopeless, Irina looked at Alexei lying there with an oxygen mask and a detached gaze. He noticed her, turned his head towards her, and tried to force a weak smile onto his lips. "Have you come?" he said hoarsely, as if hoping her appearance could be interpreted as a gesture of forgiveness. Irina didn't come closer. She put her bag on the windowsill, crossed her arms over her chest, and spoke in an even voice. "Alexei, I need to understand this house you never told me about, what it is, where it is. What is it for? Why is it registered in my name?" He closed his eyes, as if in pain, and tried to turn away. "I didn't want to drag you into it. I thought I could quickly turn it off. It was simply a technical necessity. But everything is registered in my name, Lyosha." Irina stepped closer. "I never signed any papers and didn't even know this house existed." He swallowed without opening his eyes. "They helped me. They said it would be easier this way. You would have ruined everything if you had found out earlier." "Who helped?" "Alexei." Her hunger trembled, but she wanted the truth. Who else knew? He hesitated, breathing heavily, avoiding her gaze, until finally he whispered, "Mom," she said. "You'll ruin everything, that you're pushing too hard, and sooner or later we'll split up anyway." She just wanted me to have a backup plan. Irina was silent for a few seconds, looking out the window, then said quietly, "Now I understand your mother. You weren't just afraid of the truth. You were afraid of the consequences, and she told you how to avoid them." He wanted to say something again, but she had already turned to the door. "Rest, Lyosha. This is just the beginning." She left quietly, without a sound. Leaving the room, Irina didn't head for the exit. She walked slowly, as if walking a tightrope. Halfway to the stairs, fragments of memories flashed through her mind, abrupt, almost imperceptible, but now they formed a coherent picture. Not long ago, as Irina was leaving the bathroom, she noticed Tamara Pavlovna put her phone away too quickly, as if hiding something, and then, hearing her footsteps, she heard her mother-in-law whisper in the living room, "Tss, she's coming," and silence. Later, at the holiday table, Alexei whispered something to his mother, and she nodded almost imperceptibly. Irina thought it was something household, but later, when the glass contained wine that had supposedly been stored for many years and was intended only for the two of them, she became uneasy. And just the day before, Tamara had been straightening the tablecloth and dropped it. Sometimes life itself tells you who shouldn't be at the table. The phrase had seemed inappropriate then, now frightening. The puzzle was coming together, but questions remained. Irina turned toward the wardrobe, silently grabbed her coat, and headed toward the parking lot. She no longer doubted her mother-in-law's hand in yesterday's incident. 40 minutes later, without breaking stride, she climbed the stairs of her mother-in-law's building and stopped at the door where she wanted to get the answer she desired. Tamara Pavlovna's apartment greeted Irina with the aroma of freshly ground coffee, perfume, and expensive creamy cologne. Everything around her suggested that the owner lived comfortably. Polished glasses on the shelf, a soft throw on the sofa, a new chair by the window. Irina suddenly realized that Alexei generously supported his mother, despite everything she said about his wife behind her back. Irochka. Tamara Pavlovna opened the door with a damp towel in her hand and a slightly tense smile. Come in, maybe have some coffee? I'll make you an espresso. I have some lemon sticks. You like them. I won't be long. Irina walked into the room with restraint and kept her coat on. Alexei is in the hospital. He said that you knew. He said it was your idea. Tamara suddenly froze, then snorted and turned away. He's in such a state. He'll say anything. Everything about his mother, of course. He wouldn't have thought of it on his own. Look what you've driven him to. I drove him to it. Irina's voice was even but harsh. I just want to know the truth. Who pushed him to this? Tamara threw up her hands. Oh, Irochka, you know that. I've always only wanted the best. It's hard for Alexei with you. It's like he's always taking an exam. And most importantly, the children. Where are the grandchildren, Ira? I was waiting, I hoped. And now what? We were checked. Irina looked straight ahead. The doctors didn't find any cause. Maybe it wasn't me. Nonsense, Tamara blurted out. Marinka, however, managed it. She stopped short, as if she herself was frightened by what she said. The air in the room grew thicker. Who is Marina? Irina asked. There was surprise in her voice. I don't have to. Tamara hesitated, and then sharply raised her voice. I don't have to discuss his life with you. Get out of my house. But it was too late. The name had already been said, and that was the key. Irina froze, as if something had clicked inside her. A memory surfaced. 6 months ago, Tamara Pavlovna said with a smirk that Alexei was now in order at work. Marinka was smart with him. She had everything under control. Then Irina didn't attach any importance to it. And then there was the strange call when she picked up Alexei's phone while he was in the bathroom. A woman's voice, confident, calm. So, have you signed it? Then let's begin. The caller hung up immediately upon hearing Irina's voice. She then looked at the caller's name. M appeared on the screen. There was only one way out. Find this unknown Marina. And if Alexei hadn't told the truth, she would get to her herself. The address of the second house in the bank letter was the only clue, the address of the house on Lesnaya. The house on Lesnaya was neat, almost toy-like. White shutters, a well-kept front garden, a twisted metal fence. Children's clothes were drying on the veranda. A bicycle with a yellow bow on the handlebars was parked by the porch. Everything looked offensively ordinary. Irina approached the gate. The house, the existence of which she had learned only a few days earlier from the bank letters, officially belonged to her. But strangers lived there. A woman was moving behind the glass veranda in the depths of the yard. A young woman in a light sweater holding a mug. A child, a boy of about 4, was playing next to her. His face had familiar features, the look in his eyes, the movement of his chin, the dimple at his mouth, like Alexei's. Irina wanted to ring the doorbell, but changed her mind and slowly lowered her hand. How could she prepare for such encounters? She didn't know what she was feeling. Anger, jealousy, disgust. But looking at the child, she realized that acting rashly would be a fatal mistake. Turning around, she headed back to the car. It was clear the conversation would happen sooner or later, but not now. First, see a lawyer. Everything had to be done correctly, calmly, legally. Let all the debts go to the one who incurred them. Let the truth be revealed on paper, with signatures, through the courts if necessary, because now it was her turn, her rules, her game. A few days later, Irina returned to the hospital. Alexei had more or less recovered, breathing deeply. He was no longer wearing an oxygen mask, speaking clearly, and even tried to sit up when he saw her. But Irina just shook her head. Don't get up. You can answer while lying down. She put her bag on the windowsill, took out a thick envelope and carefully placed it on the nightstand next to the IV. Here's the lawyer's report. The house on Lesnaya is in my name. The mortgage is in my name. The payments have been overdue for 6 months. Signatures, dates, bank statements. I understand a lot now. I'll go ahead with this package. Do you understand that? What do you think the police will say? Malicious intent, forged signature, attempted poisoning. This is no longer a family quarrel, my dear. This is a case. He looked at her without blinking. Then he looked away, as if trying to remember or think of something. I didn't think it would all turn out like this. I wanted the best. I thought you wouldn't find out. I thought it would be easier for you. You always dragged everything out. And I would have re-registered it later, honestly. Of course. And I think you would have disappeared afterward. Such a large debt says a lot. Irina's voice was low and even, like a taut rope. He would have left me to pay the mortgage alone. I know about Marina and your child. Alexei swallowed. I was scared, Ira. You're always strong. You have everything under control. And Marina? She was different, soft, understanding. She said she could help, that she knew how to make you stop pressuring, to make you back off, just a little bit. He closed his eyes. At first she helped, really. Accounting, contracts, taxes. She has it all in her head. She always thought 3 steps ahead. I trusted her. Business was on the rise, and then small holes in the finances appeared. I didn't understand at first. Marina said, "This is how it has to be. It's temporary." And I believed. I thought we'd get through it. We took out the mortgage in your name because you had a clean credit rating, and I was already behind on payments. I asked, "Let's put it in my name." She said, "No, they won't give it to you, only in her name. She's your wife." It doesn't matter. It's common ground. Isn't that logical? It is. Irina's voice was icy. Then she said she was pregnant. And that was it. I was trapped. Everything I signed was dictated by her. She threatened to tell you. She blackmailed me by saying she would leave with the child if I didn't take out another line of credit. I no longer knew the truth. I just wanted to sweet-talk her. And so you agreed to her scheme, poisoning her wife, forging papers, putting on a show with wine. Irina looked at him without blinking, and then ran away. He was shaking. I didn't think it would come to this. She said, "It's like a sedative, that you simply won't resist, that everything will go smoothly." So who came up with the idea to drug me? Irina came closer. Was it her idea to poison me, or you yourself? He closed his eyes. She gave me the capsules, said they were safe, would just cause temporary insanity. I thought you'd lie down. I'd take you to the hospital. It would all be chalked up to exhaustion. Irina shook her head. You've been thinking too much, Lyosha, and not with your own head. She turned and headed for the door, but looked back before leaving. I have my own game now, my own plan, a legal one, and you and Marina are no longer the screenwriter of this story. She left, and he remained lying there, crumpling the sheet, his face as white as the walls. On the nightstand lay an envelope, papers from the lawyer. The next morning, Irina found herself back on Lesnaya. She stood by the neat fence, behind which everything exuded a strange comfort. The front garden, the swing, the bicycle against the wall. She pressed the doorbell and took a step back. A few moments later, a woman appeared on the porch, blonde, neatly coiffed, and dressed in simple but expensive clothes. She was holding a child's sweater. "Hello?" Irina's voice was calm but firm. "We need to talk." Marina flinched, but quickly pulled herself together. "Are you Irina?" "Yes, the one you registered the debts to. I didn't come backstage. I came to talk." They sat at the kitchen table. The house was quiet. The child was probably asleep or had been taken away. Marina remained calm, but her fingers fiddled with the hem of her sweater. "I don't want this house," Irina said. "It's not for me. I have my own. And of course, I'm not going to drag your debts down. I spoke with a lawyer. There are options whereby all this will be returned to you through the court with fines, or voluntarily on your part." Marina was silent, then nodded. "I'll register it in Alexei's name and sign a waiver of claims against you. We'll sort this out ourselves. That's not enough. Irina pulled out a second folder. Compensation. Not for the house, but for what you did. For trying to deprive me of my name, property, and health. It's legally justified. I'm ready to sign a settlement agreement if I receive compensation within a month. Marina nodded again. Her face turned to stone. Okay, I'll get it all formalized. Anything else? And one last thing. During the divorce, Alexei will sign a waiver of all claims to our house, the one I live in, so that neither you nor he can show up at my door with any papers or divide it up through the courts. This house will remain mine alone, and the past in it will remain just that, the past. Marina was silent for a long moment, then pressed her lips together. And if not, then I'll file a criminal complaint and present copies of the records, extracts, and testimony. Marina smiled wryly, but said nothing. At that moment, the child began to cry in the next room. She jumped up and automatically headed for the hallway, but suddenly stopped abruptly and turned around. What if I prove you knew about everything in advance, that you simply decided to frame Alexei? He's the one in the hospital, not you. That means you poisoned him. You're a criminal. Alexei is just a weakling. And you're cold, predatory, childless. Everyone will believe me, and we have a child together. Irina didn't move, only exhaled slowly. If you think you can buy yourself a quiet life with blackmail, you've come to the wrong address. I know why you gave birth. No, not out of love, but to manipulate my husband. Marina turned pale. For a moment, something wild, almost animalistic, flashed in her gaze. Not fear, but rage. The entire scheme, carefully constructed over months and years, flashed through her mind, collapsed. Irina is alive. The house she lives in is not theirs. The company's bankruptcy is just around the corner. There it is, right under our noses. Alexei can't handle it. Everything she feared was becoming reality. Poverty again, and the source of it all, there it was, sitting right in front of her. One leap, one deft blow, and she would be gone. Marina spun around with lightning speed, as if to go after the child, but instead she yanked open the kitchen drawer. Her hand darted toward the kitchen knife, thin and shiny. Irina recoiled, but regained her composure. Then, coldly and clearly, she said, "Now you take a step, and you're no longer just a swindler. You'll become a murderer and go to prison, and nothing you say will change anything. My lawyer knows where I've gone." Marina froze. The blade trembled in her hand. Then slowly, as if hypnotized, she lowered the knife back into the drawer and grabbed the edge of the table as if trying to keep from collapsing. "You don't understand," she whispered. "Without your house, without you, we'll be lost. Alexei can't cope. I can't cope. Child, don't drag me into your problems. They're yours alone." Irina looked at her rival with a piercing gaze. "You won't be able to drag me into your schemes again. Cope yourselves. I'm leaving, and you both stay with what you've built. He'll sign your papers," she hissed. "Just disappear forever. I'll leave, but not before I get everything I'm owed." Irina stood up. The papers remained on the table. She went outside, got into the car, started it, and stepped on the gas. The house disappeared around the corner. It and its tenants no longer interested her. A month later, the divorce was finalized. The house on Lisnaya was registered to Alexei. All the accumulated multi-million-dollar debts, too. Irina received compensation, and the house she lived in became her sole property. Now she dreamed not of a prince or a place, but simply of quiet mornings, the smell of fresh bread, no one whispering behind her back, and a house finally arranged the way she'd long wanted. Let me know how you liked my story, and be sure to subscribe to my channel. Bye-bye, Tata. See you in next video.